Let's start off with something light. Scientists predict that by 2050, the amount of pandemic deaths that we've had since 2019 will effectively be happening every year as a result of climate change. And that's why CO2 is not enough. Capturing CO2 is not the only thing that we can be doing to save our climate. There are a lot of other climate disasters that we have ignored and just simply pushed onto CO2 as almost a scapegoat. The reality of it is there are quite a lot of different climate disasters going on in the world. And I'm just going to name 14 of them for you today, broken down into land, sea, and air. The first one we got for you is waste. Waste is due to improper disposal, as you've probably seen garbage on the side of the road and whatnot. It can actually cause toxic chemicals inside the soil and end up killing animals that eat it, along with produced gas when put in sunlight. So obviously, cleanup and proper disposal of this waste would be highly beneficial. The next one we have is pesticides. Pesticides are often used in agricultural use, but are actually highly toxic chemicals for both humans and animals. They can obviously kill animals. They kill a great deal of plants. They affect bee mating. And on top of that, it is just overall toxic. So the best way to fix that is to either use natural pesticides or to use no pesticides at all when we're growing our crops. Groundwater is another one that is very common. A lot of waste or leaks within our systems or even runoff from our fields and whatnot get into our groundwater and end up actually directly affecting our health and also the flora and fauna of nature. And as a result, regulations and stricter engineering really needs to be put in place to affect groundwater pollution. Light and sound pollution is one of my favorites because it is the most unsung of all the disasters, and it happens a lot in urban areas. It can cause problems with bird migration, it can cause problems with nocturnal animals hunting, reproduction for different animals like birds, and also it just reduces beauty because it actually gets rid of the ability to see stars. So obviously a lot of sound and a lot of light that blocks out other light from elsewhere causes huge problems. And the only way to really fix this one is to actually just have regulation, implement the engineering we really already have. Deforestation or habitat destruction is very common also. Everyone's heard about it. It's due to land usage. We just increasingly want more resources and more land, but it causes extinction, ecological imbalance, and it warms the planet even more because there's no carbon sink. So preservation of our various different wildlife is always a key priority. Monocropping is one that isn't talked about enough because it is predominantly just agricultural based. Essentially, agricultural production for a long time thought that one crop throughout the entire field was good, but it actually decreases biodiversity, which actually decreases yield, and as a result leads to nutrient depletion, which decreases yield even more. So actually diverse farming has recently picked up because it has shown that not only can you get more types of goods, but also it actually increases the yield of the goods and the longevity of your crop. Now under the C category, I have spills. We have oil drilling, which is a huge issue. I'm sure we've all heard about spills throughout our time. And spills coat animals, which can lead to their death. It is also highly toxic for them when it's eaten, such as fish eating the oil, which is very common actually. And it also blocks out light for plants underneath the sea or on the seafloor. And the only way to really fix this one is strict regulations because the large majority of spills have been as a result of lack of regulation, unfortunately. Plastic is another huge one. 15 to 51 trillion pieces of plastic are in our oceans, and it gets ingested or animals get caught in the plastic, and that can actually cause huge issues for both the animal and humans because, in fact, plastic is supposed to outweigh fish by 2050. And microplastics also cause problems in humans because they can actually get in the body and never leave, which can cause huge issues with humans. And the only way to really fix this one is to clean it up. So cleanup efforts are underway. Fertilizer is another one that people often don't think about. Fertilizer is a huge issue because it causes algae blooms or things such as red tide that you might have seen. This is from runoff from agriculture. It causes toxic algae, it reduces the amount of oxygen in the ocean, and increases the nitrogen, which is toxic for both humans and all animals, including plants. And the only way to really fix this one is either to use environmentally friendly fertilizer or to not use fertilizer any longer besides things like manure. Overfishing is another huge issue that people don't think about. Same things with clams. Clams naturally filter out the ocean water, and fishes essentially do the same. But illegal fishing or little to no laws regarding fishing have caused extinction, disruptions in the food chain, and as a result, less food for actually us and other animals. And the only way to really fix this one is for businesses to get behind it, and not only that, but for more regulations to be made in less strict countries. Thermal pollution is another issue within the sea. Thermal pollution is another one that people don't really think about that much. And it's actually as a result of water cooling machines in industrial areas to help produce more within those facilities. But the problem with that is it ends up actually killing plants where it's output into the ocean, and it also affects reproduction and migration of certain animals. And it's a really simple fix. All I need to do is install cooling ponds and cooling towers that simply cool off the water before they put it in the ocean. Under the air category, this is where it gets interesting. CO2 is not the only killer out there that goes in our air. In fact, methane is 80 times worse for warming the planet than CO2, and nitrous oxide is 300 times worse. And it's largely due to livestock and burning of waste, and it can produce toxic ozone, and it can also create thermal runaway, which essentially means that we get stuck in a loop of just continuing to get hotter and hotter. And it's really easy fix. You can capture a lot of these chemicals directly from the source, or just simply have the industry deflate. The next one is soot, which is also pretty similar. It's burning of waste. It can cause acid rain, serious lung health issues in all animals, and it reduces light visibility, which means less plant health. So overall, that one's pretty easy too, because it can actually be directly captured, and just regulation would also help a lot of it, because burning of waste is obviously a huge issue. The other one that people don't think about so much is really interesting, actually. It is space debris. Space debris is essentially from old spacecraft that essentially get stuck up in space in orbit. And although it doesn't seem like that big of an issue, it can cause collisions, which can cause a variety of issues because we rely heavily on satellites and actually a lot of the stuff outside of our direct atmosphere. On top of that, it interferes with radio in our internet because it can actually reflect some of that stuff. On top of deorbiting some materials, which means that the materials would actually crash down to Earth, and that would be a huge issue. So NASA is currently working on cleanup, but quite frankly, not enough money is being put into it because people just brush it off. So I just told you only 14 climate disasters, and I'm sure you already feel overwhelmed. I'm sure if you're taking notes, you probably didn't even keep up. And those are all existential emergencies. They're not just light-hearted, throwaway things. They are actual things that could threaten life here on Earth, not only for plants, other animals, but also human beings, a lot of them. And we're really not doing enough by just addressing CO2 to actually save ourselves. So we actually need to change nearly everything we do. And when I say everything we do, I mean nearly everything. I just listed a variety of ways that are only the tip of the iceberg. And quite frankly, even that alone sounds insurmountable. Which is why everyone needs to get on board with these things. Because right now, we only have a couple people here and there that really care about the environment to the point that they're willing to drastically change their way of life. But the reality is that we need to start cracking down on these things, because even using too much toilet paper or putting certain soaps inside the environment can really cause an issue. And it's a way that you can fix climate change yourself. So really, if I would urge anything, I would say really evaluate some of the ways that you live your life and how it might be climate friendly or not, because there are little things that really might not affect you that much, but could greatly affect the environment. So hopefully today you guys will go home and take a look at some of that stuff and hopefully change some of the ways you live so that maybe one day we'll have a climate that we can live in.